Behind the Mirror of Music with Dannii Cohen.
Hello and welcome to Behind the Mirror of Music. My name is Dannii Cohen. This week's guest is Darren Day. Darren Day made his West End debut as Joseph in Andrew Lloyd Webber's Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, which he followed with leading roles in Grease, Godspell, Summer Holiday, The Rocky Horror Show, Hello Dolly, Great Expectations, Chicago, and more. This month, he returns to the role of Billy Flynn in the touring production of Chicago. I hope you will enjoy the show.
Hello, Dannii.
Hello, Darren.
Nice to talk to you.
Same. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good, you know. I've just done this magazine interview and this front cover thing, photo shoot. But I'm pretty good, thank you. Are you well?
Yes, I'm okay too. What are you up to right now?
I'm going to be. I'm about 5 weeks away from starting rehearsals for Chicago, and so I've just started doing all the promo, you know, photo shoots and interviews. But Billy Flynn in Chicago is definitely one of my bucket list tick-offs, if you like. And when I was offered this about 6 weeks ago, I was probably and am probably the most excited about a theatre role that I've been probably since Joseph 28 years ago. It's just one, I love this show. I've been to see it many times with mates in it, and actually had a couple of mates in the role of Billy. And so to get this opportunity to do 6 months of playing Billy Flynn, I'm really genuinely excited. And it's an amazing feeling, sort of 28 years on from my musical theatre debut, to feel really genuinely excited and buzzed up about playing this role. And I think what's going to be amazing, you know, for all of us, for all the cast and the whole team, backstage, front of house, creative, everybody, you know, that first night that we go on stage in front of an audience in September, it's going to be like no other night that we've ever experienced because of what we've gone through, all of us, over the last 16 months or so. That first night on stage, doing what we love doing and haven't been able to do for so long, I think it's going to be, to share that with a company and with a team. I think it's going to be quite emotional, Dannii. Really. So to answer your question, at the moment, I'm you know, learning the script, learning the songs, doing promo, and just getting myself match fit and match ready to go on stage in September. Rehearsals are literally, as I said, 5 weeks away. So just getting ready. I'm in the gym again, first time, trying to shake off all the chocolate that I've eaten. So it's just brilliant to be busy again, Dannii.
As you said, your first big break was in Joseph. What was that like?
Oh, Dannii, I mean, I always feel like the cliche police are going to come and arrest me when I talk about Joseph, because it was an absolute dream come true for me. I played Joseph when I was 12, or maybe 11, actually. It was the end of like junior school. So I would have been about 11, and I played Joseph in a school concert. And I just remember the magic of that show. And then when I was 5 years old, my granddad on my father's side, he was a music hall act. He played vaudeville and actually supported like Laurel and Hardy when they came over to the UK. And he talked to me many, many times and showed me billboards when I was a kid of the London Palladium. And so the London Palladium was something that I'd always been aware of since I was a kid. And when I was 5, he and my dad took me to the London Palladium to see, they were called Morecambe and Wise. They were very, very famous, very popular UK comedy double act. And I can remember, even as young as 5, Dannii, sitting in that audience thinking, oh, I'd love to be here one day. And then in 1991, because I was and am friends with Jason Donovan, I went to Jason's opening night at the Palladium as Joseph. And I sat there thinking, oh, this is like the best thing I've ever seen. I would love to be in this one day, never thinking I would ever be. 1 year later in 1992, again, because I was mates and am mates with Philip Schofield, I was at Philip's opening night. And again, sat there in awe of this wonderful musical, but never ever dreaming that 12 months later, it would be my opening night. And I just went and auditioned with many others at the Palladium. And I thought to myself, if I don't get this gig, which was very unlikely because I wasn't a profiled person at that point, I just remember thinking, but I can tell my granddad that I stood on the London Palladium stage for 3 minutes and didn't audition. So I auditioned, I sang Any Dream Will Do, sang Close Every Door in front of Andrew Lloyd Webber's creative team. And then 3 days later, I was offered a recall, went back to the Palladium the following week, again sang both songs, and this time in front of Andrew. And then 3 days later, I was in Marks and Spencer's in Golders Green. I will never forget. Mobile phones had just come out. I just had a new mobile phone for the first time. And my manager called me, and I will never forget his words. He said, "The Dreamcoat's yours, mate." And it just stuck with me. And even when I say that line, I know it sounds a bit show busy, but I go goosebumps, because it was like, you know, getting a chance to play Joseph as I did when I was 11, getting the chance to be at the Palladium as I'd been to with my grandfather, heard so much about as a child, watched two of my very good friends play this role at the Palladium. And it was just a dream come true. And the next 6 weeks of rehearsals, you know, I was suddenly on the front cover of all the teen magazines, and I was on every chat show. And the next 6 weeks were just like a whirlwind. And then to suddenly be there on the opening night and to be playing this dream role, it is career-wise, it's like no other night in my whole career, because it was just, I constantly pinched myself all the way through rehearsals, all the way through the run at the Palladium, particularly the first night. I just couldn't believe that it was me. And I used to think, I'm going to wake up soon, and this is going to have been a very long dream, you know. But it was just magical, Dannii, and I'm so grateful to that job, because everything that sort of has happened to me since really came from that first night, you know.
Absolutely, it was a wonderful time.
It was, Dannii, yeah,
yes.
Yeah. I've been lucky. Last year I did 2 online concerts. I played Joseph again towards the beginning of the first lockdown. Never imagined in my early 50s I would have to play Joseph again. Fortunately, I didn't have to put the loincloth on. I'm not sure that would have looked as pretty as it did 20 years ago. But they got 30 members of the cast together of previous West End and world tours and UK tours. And I played Joseph, and that was a sort of a 2-month commitment, lots of Zoom rehearsals and lots of recordings. The guys would come to the house, they would set their mixing desk up down one end of the lounge with masks on. They'd set a microphone up down the other end of the lounge for me, and would keep the masks on just until I sang. And I went straight on from doing that as Joseph to playing Jesus in the Godspell online concert. And that sort of repeated what I did at the beginning of my career in 1993, because when I did the Palladium, which was my big break, if you like, the first night of Joseph, Stephen Schwartz, who wrote Godspell, and his producer came back to see me and asked me to play Jesus on a new cast recording, and we recorded that at Abbey Road Studios, which was such an honor to get the chance to do that. So I remember the headlines in '93 being Darren Day from Joseph to Jesus. And I ended up sort of repeating that same thing last year, which was a great pleasure. And I managed to do quite a few online things.
After that, I think you did Summer Holiday or Great Expectations.
Yeah, Great Expectations was just after. So I did Joseph at the Palladium. Then I did the Godspell album with Stephen Schwartz at Abbey Road Studios, which again was just like a pinch yourself moment. You know, I'm a massive Beatles fan. To be at Abbey Road And I had to do that shot outside, you know, on the zebra crossing.
Of
I had
course.
to do that. You got to do that. But to be in Abbey Road Studios recording with Stephen Schwartz conducting us all, it was incredible. And then straight after that, I was offered to play Pip in a musical adaptation of Great Expectations. I was a massive fan of the book, of the Dickens book, loved the story and the characters. And I actually did that for 3 years consecutively at Christmas over the next, so I did that in 93 Christmas, 94 and 95. 95, I was, during that time, I went back and toured with Joseph in the UK. And then I was doing Barry Manilow's musical Copacabana at the Prince of Wales Theatre, which to this day is one of my favourite shows I've ever done. It was a great honour to work with Barry. And during that run, I was the producers for Summer Holiday, which was going to be happening in 1996, came to see me and offered me the role of Cliff Richard, you know, Don, the role that Cliff had played in the iconic late 60s musical, musical movie, Summer Holiday. And it was 2.5 years of my life. You know, I did a 6-month run and we broke the box office records, which again was a dream. And then we toured, we did the West End, and it was very special. And actually from that gig, I got a record contract with Simon Cowell at RCA Records. In the days where he wore his trousers in the right place. He never wore them up there when I knew him.
Yeah.
They were down. But yeah, and I got myself a record deal. We released Summer Holiday as a single and as an album. Cliff Richard came and did backing vocals for us on the album, which was just, again, amazing for me. And Summer Holiday went into the top 20. So the week that the show opened, Summer Holiday went into number 17 in the top 20, which again, it was just like a boyhood dream. Like the first few years of my career were just, when I look back on them now, I wish I could have sat back and sort of taken it in a little bit more, because when things suddenly go like that, it's such a whirlwind. Everything goes so fast. And now I look back on that time and just think how lucky I was to have done the things that I did. You know, Cliff came and sang with me on every opening night. At the end, you'd get up and we'd sing Summer Holiday together. And I've had so many nights like that, Dannii. You know, one that I remember very vividly, which will be up there with singing with Cliff, and my opening night of Joseph, was when I did We Will Rock You. And on the opening night, we're standing on stage singing Bohemian Rhapsody, and the screens at the back go up, and on a platform comes forward Roger Taylor on the drums, Brian May on the guitar, and we stood there singing Bohemian. I go goosebumps. We're standing there singing Bohemian Rhapsody with Roger Taylor and Brian May, and I just feel really lucky, Dannii, to have had those opportunities and those things happen that I would have only dreamt of as a boy. You know,
it was such a great time, because I think musical could get really big at that time, because there were so many TV shows where you could see the stars and the songs, and well, you could get a real bump with an artist or a musical like that.
Yeah,
yes,
absolutely. And there's nothing like, you know, with those kind of musicals where everybody knows the songs. Again, it was the same with Grease. When I played Danny Zuko in London with Grease, you know, John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John came to see the show, and you're like, oh my God. And those kind of shows, Joseph, Grease, Summer Holiday, We Will Rock You, every single song that you begin to sing on stage, you can hear the buzz in the audience. You can sort of, you know, they're singing the words along with you. And when you send that audience out at the end of the night, having performed those shows, and everyone's singing and smiling, and it's an incredible feeling, you know. That I used to come in for a bit of criticism from the more sort of hardcore publications, you know. It's like, oh, Darren Day always does that genre of happy musicals, popcorn, you know, musicals. But I loved doing it because there was, for me, there was nothing like seeing the smiles on people's faces in the audience. sending people away happy, getting letters from people saying that, you know, they had such a wonderful experience. And I'm really, I can't wait to do that again. And, you know, I remember the NME. So the NME is a really, really sort of credible heavyweight music magazine, you know. Do you know what I mean, the NME? You know the one I mean? They reviewed one of my albums and they said Darren Day's album is so middle of the road, is in danger of getting run over at any point. I never forget that headline, but I loved doing that stuff, you know. And I put my hands up to, you know, I did all those kind of romantic lead, happy, family-friendly shows that appealed to 3 generations. Most of my recordings were like that. The television shows I hosted were like that, you know. I always used to say, oh, here comes Darren Day with his cheesy grin, you know, but you can't go on Saturday night telly and, like, you know, you look out and show the old gnashers a bit. But I loved doing those kind of shows, and I know that Chicago, you know, it's going to be like that again. Everyone knows the songs, everyone loves the show. It's going to be really exciting, and I just feel really grateful. There were a couple of shows I did where I broke the mold a little bit. On the back of Summer Holiday, I went and played Frankenfurter in the Rocky Horror Show. I remember Richard O'Brien coming back to me on the opening night and saying, you can say anything you want, Darren. You know, there are no holds barred. Whatever the audience shout at you, you can say anything back. You know, there are no limitations with Frankenfurter. And it was quite liberating to do that show and to play that role. And I, you know, I did let him have it on occasions, because I think also, you know, when you're hiding behind a character where you're so unrecognizable, as Frankenfurter, your inhibitions drop seriously. And I remember the girl that used to dress me for that, she said, it's when the shoes go on. She said, like, because the shoes were the last thing to go on. It's had the wig on and the makeup and all this stuff. But she said, when the shoes go on, when the high heel stilettos go on, you are Frank, whether that's on stage or off. And I think she was right. But yeah, it was really good to sort of break the mold and move away from the kind of shows that I'd done. The show I did directly before that actually was Grease. And I went straight from playing, I went from Summer Holiday to Grease to Rocky Horror Show. So having sort of been John Travolta for 3 months or 6 months actually, to then go and play Frankenfurter, from having played those kind of roles, it was incredibly liberating. But yeah, you know, I've been really lucky, Dannii. I love the Phantom mask there.
Yes.
I love it.
Would you ever have liked to be in Phantom?
Pardon?
Would you ever have wanted to be the Phantom?
I was offered the Phantom in 2011, and I was on tour with another show, and they asked me to go in for 6 weeks, and I couldn't do it because I was already committed. But I've done a couple of the sort of the big live West End concert things, and I have done Music of the Night a couple of times with the mask on and in the gear. And yeah, it would definitely be, I would love to do the show one day just to say I've done it, because I love the music, and particularly Music of the Night. It's a big scene, but the times I've performed it live, I've really enjoyed doing it. And I did an album 4 years ago, a musical theatre album, and I did Music of the Night on the album as well. So I've done it in the studio, and I've also done it on stage live. And I would love to do it in context one day of the actual show, you know.
It would be great.
It would be lovely, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, I wanted to go to your favorite songs.
Okay.
Yes. Copacabana, Who Needs to Dream?
Yeah. I know it's a bit of a random one because I think unless you were a Barry Manilow fan or a Copacabana fan, I don't think people would be familiar with this song. And I mean, I was familiar with it pre-doing the show because I'm quite a Barry fan, you know. I perhaps back in the day wouldn't have told my mates down the pub I was, but I've always really rated Barry Manilow, and I think he's one of the. I think, you know, there's very few that can structure a ballad as well as he can. And I'd got albums of Barry Manilow's, and Who Needs to Dream was on them, and I always loved it. But the way that it was arranged for the live show, it was arranged. The arrangement was fantastic. It really built, and there was a big, massive note at the end, and it was a lovely scene. And I just used to look forward to singing that every day. Sometimes you might come in on a Wednesday matinee and it's wet outside and you're a bit tired and whatever, you know, and you sort of have to really get yourself charged to do a show. But no matter how many times I performed that show, when Who Needs to Dream started, I loved singing it every single day. And when I do my live concert shows now with my band, most of the time we do that. We do Who Needs to Dream. I just think it's a beautiful track.
Close Every Door from Joseph?
Yeah, I've got to put that in, you know, because I think the thing that I remember from the first night and pretty much every performance was the spectacle. You know, the show was the scenery, the costumes, the spectacle of it was just phenomenal. And there was this incredible thing that happened as Close Every Door started. And on this massive stage, you know, these bars, these prison bars just came down. And, you know, you were behind these prison bars. It was an incredible effect when it happened. And I think probably on the first night, up until Close Every Door, which is sort of maybe 2/3 of the way through Act 1, it's a blur because, you know, like I'm at the Palladium, it's a full house. It's like I'm doing the dream job at the dream venue. And I can't recall much up to Close Every Door, but because everything sort of settles down, it's just you on stage from being on stage with the rest of the cast. And these incredible bars coming down that I knew what that looked like from the audience, you know, from the audience's perspective. And it used to give me chills when I'd seen it in the auditorium. And so the fact that I was then doing that, and it's when I start to remember the first night is when I think I settled. And I just remember singing that. It's such a journey, without sounding too show busy. It's such a journey for Joseph, that song, from where he starts and the hope that builds, and then wonderful children's choir comes in with you and you're singing with the children on stage. It's magical. And so, yeah, Close Every Door is really special to me. I've sung it many times. I did it on one of my albums a few years ago. So yeah, it's got to be there. It has to be there.
Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah. You know, they always say, what's the one that got away? You know, like a role or a part or a musical or a job. What's the one that got away? And for me, it was Joe Gillis in Sunset Boulevard. When I was doing Copacabana, my friend John Barrowman was playing Joe Gillis in Sunset Boulevard in London at the Adelphi. He was fantastic. And I remember going to see it, and it's my favourite Andrew Lloyd Webber show. And I'm lucky enough to call Don Black, who wrote the lyrics, a friend. I've known Don for many, many years. I think I love his lyrics anyway, but I think the collaboration of Andrew and Don with Sunset Boulevard was just magical. And it's like, for me, it was the first time I'd seen what for me was a movie on stage. And I wanted it so badly. And then, as I said earlier, I was offered summer holiday while I was doing Copacabana. And I said yes to summer holiday. We were contracted. And then in my last week of Copacabana, I got offered 3 months as Joe Gillis in Sunset Boulevard for the following year. But I'd already signed for summer holiday. And don't get me wrong, I wouldn't have missed out on doing summer holiday for all the world. But if there is a part that got away from me that I would have loved to have done, and I'm too old to do now, let's face it, it was Joe Gillis in Sunset. So every time I get the opportunity to sing that on stage, I do. And again, I put that on that album that I talked about earlier. I just think it's such a dramatic song, and yeah, I love it. I love the arrangement. I love the lyrics.
I wanted to ask you about something that you've recently started talking about. That you were diagnosed with borderline.
Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah, I have it too. So that's something that touched me.
Do you?
Yes.
So the BPD, borderline
Yes.
personality. Oh, hey, if we were together, I'd shake your hand. Yeah. And you know, the thing is, and you'll know this, obviously, Dannii, is that, you know, it's anything but borderline. That's the thing. And I remember when I was diagnosed, I've been put on God knows how many antidepressants over the years since really sort of the beginning of 2005. I've been on every antidepressant that there was. They never helped. Most of the time they made things worse, if I'm honest. And it got quite desperate for me in, I'd say 2000, just after I did Celebrity Big Brother in 2016, towards the end of that year. And I started feeling like really just like some days I didn't know how to get from one end of the day to the other. And then in 2018, I was seeing a therapist, and she said to me one day, I want to send you to the Priory Hospital, and I want them to check you out because I think you've got bipolar. I think you suffer with bipolar disorder. I kind of heard of that, but I didn't quite know what it really meant. So in September of 2018, I was diagnosed with bipolar, and I've got bipolar 2, which is the rapid change. So I know a friend of mine has bipolar 1, which is maybe he has 4 or 5 manic episodes in a year. But number 2, it's rapid. And it can be a morning to an afternoon, or it can be 1 minute, or sometimes even 1 second to the other. So I was put on the right medication for bipolar, but things were better, Dannii, but they weren't great, you know, and I always felt there was still something missing. And this is why I have to be, in a very, very surreal way, grateful to lockdown, because had lockdown and COVID not have happened, I would have been on tour from March last year with Footloose, and I would have been on the road for 18 months, and I would have not had the time to be diagnosed. But because I suddenly had this time, I'm going to drop a name here now, but Robbie Williams and I are very, very close. We've been friends for 5 years. We confide in each other a lot. He's like a brother to me. I literally love him like he was my blood, and we have a very close relationship, and Rob's support of me and my mental health has been incredible. I'm forever in his debt and forever grateful. And we were talking last year at the beginning of the lockdown, and Rob said to me, I want to send you to my team in London. So very kindly, he sent me to his team in London, and within 3 or 4 weeks of the first lockdown last year, I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. I'd not heard of it before. And I was put on the right medication for that. And I'm now, I mean, I should rattle with the amount of meds that are inside of me, but I'm now on the right medication for that. I'm on the right medication for bipolar. And my life, Dannii, has transformed. I feel the best I've felt in so many years, and it makes sense of all those years that I was wrongly diagnosed and had the wrong meds for. But as I said at the beginning of this, I remember my psychiatrist, who's now my psychiatrist and my therapist, saying he said my problem. He runs the Priory in Roehampton now. He's incredibly well informed and knowledgeable, and he said my problem with the term borderline personality disorder is it suggests you're just borderline. He said, but actually what it means is you're borderline everything.
Yes.
As you'll know, and it's a difficult one to live with, isn't it? And it's hard to explain to other people the symptoms. But are you on meds for it, Dannii, if you don't mind me asking?
I've been on medication for a while, but I'm still waiting for the right one. So at the moment, I am using a medical nature medication. It's because, well, I'm in the Netherlands, and they're not really that good yet with the medication you need, because well, they have to learn from tests in America or the UK before it comes here.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, I'll very happily send you a list of the meds I'm on, because I have to say, Dannii, it's changed my life. It's, you know, it took a few weeks for them to work, and actually it took a few months to get the right balance. It's such trial and error, isn't it? The meds thing.
Yes, yes.
So personal to each individual, but finally, around sort of towards the end of last year, after months of, you know, different sort of mixing that one with that one, they just found the right cocktail, for want of a better terminology. And since then, Dannii, my life has been, it's just, I'm so grateful because I feel calm. Look, do you know what? The meds don't cure you. And what I've learned through having therapy over these past months and past year or so is that you have to help yourself, and the meds are there to complement the actions that you take and the things that you do. But through therapy and, you know, Rob, as in Robbie Williams, sort of, you know, giving me this great opportunity to have weekly appointments with a psychiatrist, with a therapist, I've learned so many tools that the meds are then a great complement to go with, you know, and my life's so much different. I'm calm. I think my children can see a massive change in me. My partner can see a massive change in me. And it will be the first time in September, it'll be the first time that I've been on a stage for years and years and years where I think I'll feel okay. I was so anxious for many years on stage, and it got worse and worse, and I didn't understand why. And truthfully, you know, there were times when I self-medicated with alcohol or whatever, which created massive other problems. But I'm just, yeah, I feel like the meds and the tools that I use now through learning, it's just changed my life, Dannii, and I really hope things can change your life as well.
I hope so too. Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome, Dannii. Okay. Well, it's lovely to talk to you, Dannii.
It was wonderful talking to you.
Behind the Mirror of Music with Dannii Cohen.